Good evening. It is 7:30, and I herewith call to order the June 28th, 2017 meeting of Gaithersburg Historic District Commission. And I'd like to start with a roll call on my left.
Gregory Mann.
Mark Feinstein.
Mary Jo LaFrance.
Chris Kurtz.
Dean Ventola.
Robert Love.
Chris Berger.
All right, well, we have a quorum, and Frank Johnson has just joined us, our city council. And let me read a brief statement which describes the protocol under which we're operating. This commission is empowered to meet and act under Article 12 of the City Code of Gaithersburg. The technical qualifications of the staff of this commission and the members of this commission are on file with the City of Gaithersburg, are available on request to any applicant, and are herewith made a part of the legal record of each and every application heard this evening. Each application heard tonight is to be considered, or is considered on its own merits, and is not to be considered as establishing a precedent for any other application. Alrighty, our first piece of business is approval of the minutes of our May 24th, 2017 meeting. They have been distributed. Any questions,
Nope.
comments?
None?
All right.
I move that we approve the minutes of the May 24th, 2017 meeting.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It is approved 5-0. Right, Greg?
Yes.
Didn't you suggest that we
Yes.
give the vote count?
That's-
All right, well done. All right, our first substantive piece of work tonight is a historic area work permit 77630 regarding a fence. Chris, have you
Yes,
have words
I
of
do.
wisdom?
Yes, I do. The subject property is a one-story minimal traditional style residence that was constructed circa 1955. 20 Chestnut Street is zoned R90, medium density residential, and is non-contributing to the Chestnut Mean Historic District. The historic area work permit comes before the HDC in accordance with section 24-227A of the City Code. The applicant seeks retroactive approval for a wood board-on-board fence measuring 6 feet tall, located along the north property line adjacent to the CSX Railroad, as indicated in red on this map. Prior to its construction, staff told the applicant that a fence would first require a historic area work permit and then a fence permit prior to construction. This was also relayed to the applicant via email dated December 8th, 2016. The applicant applied for a fence permit in February of this year. Typically, when a permit for a historic property is entered into our computer system, staff is notified that the property is historic. In this instance, either the notification did not appear or it was overlooked, and staff failed to remind the applicant a historic area work permit was required prior to issuance of the fence permit. Fence 13389-2017 was approved in March, and the fence was installed that month. Staff informed the applicant of the necessity for a retroactive review of a historic area work permit via email earlier this month, and the applicant quickly submitted this retroactive application, which we're reviewing right now. The applicant built an approximately 7-foot-long section of fence with gate that was not indicated on the fence permit application. This is what the applicant submitted with that application. And if you notice from the previous one, he didn't indicate this section right here.
Yes.
So we're going to need a new fence permit for that section of fence. The Chestnut Mean Historic District guidelines apply. They allow for open board-on-board fences, which you can see here. The fence otherwise meets all code requirements for fences. Now, there is precedence for HDC approval of a tightly spaced board-on-board fence along the tracks in Chestnut Mean. In August of 2016, the HDC approved a 5-foot-tall wood board-on-board fence for the contributing property at 114 Mean Avenue as part of HIS 7378-2016. And this was the representative example that was submitted as part of that application. So are there any questions?
Well, first, let me ask, are there any conflicts here on the Diaz?
I don't have a conflict, but I want to disclose that this is my neighbor, because I live on Chestnut Street.
Okay, and is there anyone, well, first off, is the applicant here, and if so, you don't have to say anything and you're welcome, but, and is there any member in the audience that would like to speak in any way to this application?
We did expect the applicant to be here. I talked to an associate of his earlier today, and he said that he would be here, but I guess he couldn't make it.
Okay, all righty, well, let me start on my left, commissioners.
Okay. Quick question for Chris.
Sure.
Can you put up the shot of the, just showing the site plan where the fence currently sits? So I guess the main question I have with regard to the Chestnut historic guidelines is the placement of the fence that extends into the front yard. Because while I understand, yeah, that picture, the first picture you had, that one there. My understanding is the fence placement begins at the front or rear corners of the house and extends to the rear. Additional placement adjacent to the front sidewalk may also be permitted due to traffic or other concerns affecting the Chestnut Street residences. So would that traffic, would that be considered for the train, that exception?
Well, we would consider that area along the side here to be the side yard, not the front yard. And I don't have the guidelines available here, but yeah, we would consider this to be the side yard, not the front yard. We would consider this
Yeah.
area to be the front
They're
yard.
right here in our books, so I mean, yeah,
I can pull it up on
okay.
the packet.
So yeah, my understanding, if it starts at the rear, then it needs to extend from the rear and then back. But it can start from the front, but then you would expect the fence to start at that front horizontally and then work itself back.
Be aware, though, that if the fence did extend beyond the front of the house, which by the code is the front yard, that cannot be by right 6 feet tall.
And so
So that's why I believe they stopped it prior to crossing that threshold of the front yard.
that was intentional that it stopped right at that threshold
I
point.
believe so.
It was relayed to the applicant before he installed it. That's the height limit that he could do. So yeah, I believe it was intentional that he stopped it in the side yard.
Okay. I mean, I think part of the issue we have is that the city gave them the authority to do it. So it's hard to retroactively cite them on something,
Right.
Yeah.
in my opinion. But that was my only concern looking at the location.
All right. Mary Jo?
And once again, in dealing with the retroactive permit request, even though in this case, the city staff somehow didn't complete everything, I'm concerned that we didn't have an opportunity to weigh in on the design and the placement and all of those things that I think add to a quality project. But other than that, it is what it is now. And I do realize that we should show some leniency for a property that is literally next to the train track crossing. And I might also add, being that it's a neighborhood that I live in, this is where the whistle blows, literally. So to protect anyone that's in the crosswalk and so forth. So it is necessary to have some protection. And that's all I've got.
Okay, Dean?
I don't have any questions on the fence. I do have something on the documentation provided. There's a reference in an email from you, Chris, on December 8th referencing monument signs. Does that have anything to do whatsoever with the fence?
No, not at all. I'm
And
not sure
is it
what that's in
something-
reference to.
Okay, so it's not even this project, maybe?
I can't recall what that's related
That's
to.
okay. I just wanted to make sure that it had
Oh,
nothing to
it-
do with what we're doing tonight.
I do, he does own a different separate property, and that
Okay.
monument sign was in reference to that.
Okay, that's my only question. Thank you.
All right, Robert?
Just a question about the fence itself, since they do have to come back for a fence, do they have to come back with us, or are we looking at it as it is built currently?
You're looking at it as it is built now. So if you approve with the condition that they come back with a fence permit, it would not return to the
It
HDC.
wouldn't be coming back our way, okay. I'm just kind of curious, you're saying that that's a side, is this not considered a corner lot, this is considered an interior lot?
No, because it is, yeah, it would be considered an interior lot.
Oh, that's one, okay. Further questions?
Okay, as is my custom, I bat last, and I know that area quite well, so this fence is not cosmetic. This is really necessary. Kids, dogs, adults. The only thing I would recommend is that the small additional portion that ties the fence to the back corner of the house, and I assume there's a gate, I assume
Yeah,
it
yeah,
opens
there's
and
a gate,
closes,
yeah.
is what having done a lot of construction, of course, we're sitting here with two architects, is a field change. So I would hate to have this applicant have to do anything more, and would recommend, if we do make a motion tonight, we waive that condition. I mean, it's clearly what was done in good faith. This is in character and certainly logical and part, and, you know, in terms of the streetscape, it's, you know, a quite normal, attractive fence.
I'm not sure if we can waive that as an HGC. I think that's the,
Yeah, it is something we can't waive, and this is also the best option for the applicant. We discussed this internally, whether we can just revise the fence permit that was issued, but it would actually cost the applicant more money to revise the fence permit than just apply for a new fence permit. It was the difference of about $70.
And so the staff does not have it within its discretion to say, okay, we see what you did and why you did it.
Yeah, we discussed this, unfortunately not.
No, they have to apply for a new fence permit. Every fence in the city of Gaithersburg must apply for a fence permit. If they built one incorrectly or was not shown existing or correctly on their existing permit, they would need to submit a new one showing it accurately.
Okay. Well, commissioners, I'm certainly, chair is open to a motion.
I'll make a motion. I move that the Historic District Commission, based on the exhibits submitted in the staff report, findings, and recommendation, grant historic area work permit 7630-2017, retroactive fence review, finding to be in compliance with City Code 24-227.2, with the following one condition: that the applicant must apply for a new fence permit within 30 days for the section fence not indicated on fence permit 13389-2017.
All right. Have we a second?
Second.
Okay. Call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? The vote carries unanimously, 5-0. All right. Moving right along. We have 111 Neem Avenue, a tree removal.
The subject property is a one-story rambler that was constructed circa 1953. 111 Mean is zoned R90, medium-density residential, and is non-contributing to the Chestnut Mean Historic District. The historic area work permit comes before the HDC in accordance with Section 24-227A of the City Code. The applicant seeks to remove a red maple tree to the rear of the existing house. They provided this map to show where it is in relation to the residence. An arborist on city staff inspected the tree and said it was dead and has been decaying for a while. He said it poses a potential hazard to people and nearby structures. The tree was listed in the 1999 tree inventory for the Gaithersburg Historic District, so a replacement tree 2.5 inches in diameter is required to be planted on the property per the Chestnut Mean guidelines, and that section is right here under landscape. And I believe the applicant is here. If you would like to
Right.
come to the podium
Yeah.
and state your name and address, please.
Hey, my name is Xiaozhong Bao. You can call me Alex.
Welcome. Thank you.
I would like to disclose that I'm also a neighbor to this property in the same historic district.
Well, you are
But no
very
problem.
neighborly,
I know.
Commissioner LaFrance.
Hello,
Thank-
neighbor.
Hi.
Thank you. Welcome, sir, and thank you. Is there anyone else, you don't have to say anything, so thanks. you know, the record speaks for, and you're welcome to if you'd like, but I just want to make sure, is there anybody else in the
Doing
audience
this for
that
conflicts of interest.
wants to weigh in on this in any way?
You want to check for conflicts of interest.
Oh, yes, well, I thought I did that with Mary Jo.
You-
I sort of volunteered myself.
Okay, well, let me double check. Do we
No,
have
I don't have any, no.
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you got a thing for trees. All right. All righty, thank you very much, sir. So let me start on my right, Robert, let me start with you this time.
Just kind of curious, to the applicant, thanks for coming in. What type of tree are you planning on planting there in its replacement?
Actually thought about that. That area is a highly dense tree, have like 10 or 11 trees already, big oak trees. So I think any digging might hurt those oak trees, and they won't survive because of the canopy is too big. So I don't know, I'm thinking to putting some small bushes along the property line actually looks better than putting a big tree right there. So I don't know the policy, exactly what I can do. So I want to hear your plans.
We can have our city arborist recommend something to you. If you would prefer to plant hedges or bushes, we
Yeah.
can recommend something to you.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Okay.
And is that something, Chris, that is okay through, I guess I'm just looking at the suggested plant list right now.
We could consider that a shrub or understory tree.
Okay.
Yeah. Either that or it's gotta be a tree that requires virtually no sunlight. because
Yeah, it is
pretty-
very dense back there.
Pretty shaded.
Small under canopy trees, dogwoods, rosebuds, different things like
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
I have no further questions.
Thank you, Dean.
I have no concerns or questions.
All right, there you go.
No, thank you.
Dean?
My only concern was about the replacing tree, and Robert already asked that question, so I have no issues.
Okay, thank you. Well, thank you. The chair is open to a motion. However, I think we might want to change the language of condition two, indicating that applicant agrees to, you know, work with the city arborist and come up with an acceptable approach or something along those lines.
Okay.
Does that make sense, Chris?
Yes.
Council, are we
Yes. Yes.
in trouble? Okay, thanks.
No, no, you're not in trouble. Does
Oh,
that
my
make sense?
God. Well, we're only
was
15
agreeing.
minutes in, the night is young. All right, well, the chair is certainly open to a motion.
Very good.
Sure. I move that Historic District Commission, based on the exhibits submitted in the staff report, findings and recommendation, grant Historic 7443-2017, finding it to be in compliance with 242272 of the city code with the following two conditions. Applicant must receive tree removal permit from the city prior to removal, and applicant must plant within 6 months a replacement tree or something that he and the city staff will decide is appropriate for the area, measuring 2.5 inches in diameter or a species suggested in this Chestnut Meme Historic District guidelines.
Okay.
May I
Does
ask
that
for
work?
one clarification? Can you repeat
Yes.
the HIST number?
Well, I did notice, unfortunately, there was an incorrect wording here for retroactive fence review, so did it not match? 7643-2017?
That sounds fine.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Okay,
all righty,
great.
thank you. All right, all in favor?
I'll second that. and-
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought we had a second.
Yeah, we
I
already-
apologize, thank you, Mark. So I call the vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposition? Another unanimous vote.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
Yeah.
All righty, we have two tax credit applications. The first is on Steinbeck Avenue. And do we have any conflicts here on
No.
this? Okay. Very literary, okay, so, fire away, Chris.
The England Crown main house is individually designated by the city and includes a circa 1894 2.5-story Gothic Revival farmhouse and a log tenant house and shed that date to approximately the mid to late 19th century. And here are some before and after photos of the main house. So this is before and now the after. The HDC approved the plans for the restoration of the main house and the log tenant house at its October 4th, 2012 meeting with HIS 1021-2012. Work was invoiced from 2013 to 2015. The restoration of the shed in 2013 did not require a historic area work permit because the project involved the in-kind repair of the structure. Commissioner Ventola noted that before and after photos of the log tenant house and shed were missing from the packet, so I found some for tonight. Here's the log tenant house, obviously before. And here's another look at it. And here it is under restoration. Here's an interior shot. And here's what it looks like now on the outside. And another view. And here are before and after photos of the shed. I couldn't really find a good before photo, but this is what it looked like while it was under restoration. And here's what it looks like now. The applicant is seeking the certification for $66,676.45 in work. I should note that should the county accept this tax credit application, it would not just write a check for that amount. It would be distributed over multiple years. So for example, if the tax bill next year is $5,000, they would get a credit for $5,000 and no more. So are there any questions on this application?
My turn. Just wanted to confirm that all of the work that they're seeking credits on is exterior work.
Yeah, I did go through it, and I think they had a pretty detailed
I
summary.
looked through it. There were a couple of things about new framing
Yeah.
that may have been considered. I wasn't sure if that was part of something that was an
The
addition.
one thing that I had a question for was the roof framing, but apparently the roof was at risk of collapse, so we would consider that it's holding up the roof. Though it was inside of the attic area, we would still consider that eligible.
Okay.
Here we go. Dean?
Well, yeah, I have a lot of stuff to bring to the table. My first thought is I believe that we should treat these as three separate reviews because they're completely different from each other. And so based on that, first I guess we should, table that. Is that acceptable to everybody? I guess we need a motion for that.
What's the rationale?
I'd like to discuss each one individually and say yay or nay to it being awarded tax credits or not.
But what's the rationale?
Because there's three different projects that have three different ways of construction, three different ideas behind them. So I don't think we should, I'm proposing not to say yay or nay to all of them. I'd like to do them individually.
Just by way of process, what you would procedurally probably want to do is move that they be separated into three separate applications. And then if that's seconded, it certainly could be discussed, and you may want to get staff input as to how that would be handled, because that may require some application number adjustments and
And coming
all
back
that.
before us, maybe.
Well,
Yeah.
let me propose the following, Dean, and see if this meets your concern. What if we discuss each three
That sounds fine.
separately? No, let me finish. I think you're gonna like this.
I
But-
already like it, so let's go with it.
Okay, no, because here's the
Necessarily know
thing.
that
We
prior
can,
to-
we can disaggregate. In other words,
Mhm, I know, I agree.
if
The next one.
Okay.
you think only part of the shed or only part of the log cabin or only part of the main house, then the commissioners could
I understand
approve,
that, but if it's split
you
into
know,
three,
the 66,000 less
Okay, that's all.
6,000 for whatever we think
Well,
is
that's fine.
not qualified. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
that's fine, I don't care.
Okay, if that lets us get at it tonight, I think, without tabling it and having the
No,
applicant come back?
yeah, I have no interest in
Okay.
tabling the project. I wanted to discuss them as three separate entities because to me that they are. First and foremost, though, I'm wondering about the timeliness of this. According to Montgomery County Tax Preservation Credit, these are, I think many of these, two of the three, I think, are not even eligible. They're beyond the requirement for the deadlines.
That is
And-
not incorrect. In the past, they have been lenient on the dates, so I figured we should put that to the county to decide, and not decide here whether work done in 2013 should be disqualified because of that. I think that's more for the finance department, but in the past, they have allowed work from years prior.
The thing that I'm worried about is the wording. According to the county, it's the Historic Preservation Commission reviews tax credit applications, and they certified that the project work is eligible for tax credits. We too are certifying it tonight, are we not? I have a concern of certifying something that clearly does not meet the tax credit law. I mean, they're pretty clear about the dates, and so by certifying it, are we doing something improper? I mean, we're knowingly doing it. I mean, I can tell you, it says the tax, I'll just read it to you, the timing and the deadlines. Tax credit is allowed for the county tax year immediately following the calendar year in which the work or any distinct portion thereof is completed. The tax year is July 1st through June 30th, and the application deadline is April 1st. It's crystal clear. There's no ambiguity here. And so to have something that was addressed or renovated in 2013, several years before the time ran out, makes me concerned that we're certifying it. So that's my first thought.
And I guess my question is, was that work completed in 2013? Maybe it wasn't.
Yeah,
This
the
has been a
bills show that it
hugely-
was. The
Yep.
bills show that
Oh.
they were. There's many bills, there's many checks.
Yeah.
Not the entire project.
Right.
Yeah, well, of course.
Right.
That's what I'm sort of
So
leaning
anything-
towards, that this was a long.
Anything that got paid for within this time frame, I think is eligible.
Mm.
I don't have any concerns about that. But something that goes back to 2013, I do have concerns with. That is, we're certifying it. If we can change the wording, which I do not believe we can or should, that's a different story.
Well, why don't we just say we recommend?
But I don't know, isn't our job to certify? Isn't that what we're doing tonight? Now, can we change it to recommend? I'm all for that if that's a possibility. But I would not think it is, because when I read that the county approves 98% of the ones before them, I believe they're relying on the HDC to vet it.
Right, and it could be our recommendation.
Okay, if that's
Well, let
possible.
me ask you this, could it be a recommendation?
Versus a certification.
For the specific language, I would, we can take a look and try to find out, but I don't know if I can give you an instant answer as to whether or not you
Well,
can.
would we be, in your estimation, scofflaws, were we to certify something that clearly we should not certify? Are we thumbing our noses at the rule of law?
I'll go back to what I said originally. We had a credit application last year. So 2016, this was reviewed. It was supposed to be for work done in 2015. We certified work that was done in 2014. I checked ahead of that meeting with Scott Whipple, who is with the County Preservation Department. He said, oh, that's fine. We allow, they're pretty lenient. So I don't want to deny tax credit applications based on that, when in the past the county has been lenient on dates.
Does leniency extend because one was a 1 year difference, and now we're talking about a 4 year difference or a 3 year difference?
I still am wary of denying it if it's a 1 year difference. And plus, this project wasn't completed till 2015. So perhaps the applicant's mentality is, well, let's wait for everything to be done,
That's what I'm
and then we'll
thinking.
do everything at once.
Mhm.
Well, I feel we're between Scylla and Charybdis, the narrows and the depths, because on the one hand, we don't want to appear to thumb our nose. On the other hand, we don't want to usurp the county's power. So I would humbly suggest that we change certified to recommend and go about our business.
And I'll add, the applicant is aware of this. I did tell them that the work, that it's up to the county to decide whether work done in 2013, 14, 15 is eligible. So they are eligible, or they are aware that it may not be eligible. But I also explained, like I did to you, that they have been lenient in the past on dates.
Is this a home now in private ownership?
No, it is not. It's still vacant.
Okay, but it will be, is it gonna be owned by the city, by an entity, or is it gonna be on the market for somebody to purchase?
From my understanding, it will be owned by a private individual.
Okay, so right now, it's the corporation that
Correct.
funded the project that's seeking this?
Correct,
Okay.
yes.
If I could ask, Chris, what is the exact wording of the certification that you understand county's looking for from our HTC? I'm just comparing that with what, Greg has been looking at a couple of items, and we've got a quote here, so, as far as what the certification means.
I think what the county's looking for is to make sure that this project adhered to any permit that was issued or our preservation guidelines in the case of the shed. So that is what they're looking for, to make sure that this work is eligible from our end before
Is
they...
there any particular specific wording, is what I'm asking?
I don't believe there's any specific
Okay.
wording. I think recommended would be fine.
Because criteria for eligible work eligible for a tax credit has to meet certain criteria. One of them is, all proposed work must be certified by the Historic Preservation Commission as contributing to the restoration or preservation of sites listed on the master plan for historic preservation, either individually or within a historic district. That certification isn't having anything to do with anybody's deadlines or timelines or
right.
anything.
That's
That's
right.
saying, does it contribute to the restoration or preservation of sites listed? Now, I don't know if, I'm assuming as these certifications, it does say certification, so I would be concerned that recommendation, while I understand the background there, may not meet what they're looking for. However, the question is, what is it you're certifying? Which is the question
Yeah.
Commissioner Ventula is raising.
Mhm.
It seems to me that in saying certification, wouldn't it be possible in the cover letter, and certainly the record of this meeting, to specify that the HDC understands that certification means that we're certifying that this property contributes to the restoration or preservation of the sites listed on the master plan.
Mhm.
And if that's the case, then certification. I do have a concern that saying recommendation is not going to quite meet what they need, and that even before they get into the question
Right.
of waiving
Well,
a
then I'm with
specific
you.
deadline.
Then let me ask you this, Frank, and Greg, both thank you for pulling this up.
Mhm.
What if we were to say certify that HIST, blah, 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 as it contributes to
Using that
blah, blah,
language.
blah,
Yes.
is
Yes.
eligible for participation?
That sounds very reasonable to
Does
me.
that,
Seems to reflect what's here,
Mhm.
and that is stating
that's
what your
stating the
discussion
law?
is.
Yeah.
And that's basically saying, and then if so we're certifying that, yes, the historicity of the property and the work done was contributing to that historicity. We then would leave it to the county to say, love what you did, but you were a day late and a dollar short.
Then I would add to the end of our statement, the term or the phrase, but we are not certifying that it falls within the timing deadline. I want to be crystal clear to the county that we're not certifying that.
Well, we'll see if our fellow commissioners agree with that. Would you like to get into the merits now of the
Sure.
three?
Sure.
Thanks.
The house itself, I did not have any concerns with as far as it being renovated with historic accuracy in mind and restoration and preservation of it. The log, the tenant house, I think they're calling it, that has, in my mindset, really nothing to do with the intent of this tax credit. The historic preservation tax credit is to encourage the restoration and preservation of historic properties. On top of that, there are things that it allows and things that it does not allow. And a list of the things that are eligible is uncovering and repairing original siding. One of the things that we encountered was when this project came before us as a commission, the architect took great care to make statements to reuse and repair existing siding as possible. I believe that's the term. When I look and see that 0% was considered possible, and I compare it to the Gaithersburg smokehouse, which I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you said 75% of those logs were salvaged and reused, then I believe that there was no attempt whatsoever to salvage and repair what was existing. And so, to me, this is completely different than the intent of the tax credit. It's to encourage, the county wants to encourage preserving our historic structures, not rebuilding them. And so for that reason, I cannot vote for it to
Okay.
receive the tax credit.
Let me just amplify this. Would you go back to that previous slide? Because, no, the interior. Because to agree with Dean and make it even worse, my recollection is that they admitted, I think these are not real logs on the inside. They just put boards and hewed them or did something.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And I don't know about the ceiling. The ceiling joists look pretty original.
If I remember correctly from this project, they did save some of the interior logs that were salvageable. The photo, and this photo, it looks like it's just the ceiling joist, I agree. But if I remember correctly, last time I was in it, there are some of the walls that are also that were salvageable.
But none of the original
It's been a while since I've
siding.
been in it, and it's been a while since I've looked at it, so.
Well, nothing interior is eligible.
Anyway.
Interior work is not eligible.
But I will say repairing, maintaining outbuildings such as barns and garages is, and this is an outbuilding.
Is this a repair and
Repairing and
maintenance?
retaining. I'm in agreement with that statement.
There was an existing building there, though, that they did repair.
Did they repair or rebuild?
Well, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Dean, what about the
That's the
third?
I would say the same
dwelling.
thing. The same thing applies, because when I looked at the two photos, which were not in the packet, so I asked Chris to see if he could send those over. It appears to me that the same concept was taken over. They discarded any of the original exterior material and replaced it. If you look at the before and after, it looks like it's the same things going on. So I would consider it also not historic and not respecting and renovating these and preserving the historic condition. So again, I can't imagine sending a sign out to people in the community that this is acceptable and you can go ahead and just tear off anything you want and replace it, and we'll even give you a tax credit on top of it. I have big concerns about that.
Okay, thank you. Robert?
Are these two outbuildings, are they the ones that were done in 2013?
I know the shed was done in 2013. I believe the log tenant structure was done at the same time.
So that would kind of,
Well, it's double, right.
Double.
Two reasons why I'm not comfortable with it.
yeah, Dean's explanation definitely, I mean, it makes sense. I was concerned when I did see the first building that it looked completely different, looked like a brand-new shed to me, and like, there's nothing historic about it. And now I'm concerned even with the interior, I know we're not looking at but that's barely even historic, so I would tend to agree with Dean on that. The house was fine, I liked everything they did with that, but yeah, this all looks brand new, and I think it would be sending a bad message if we did something if we sent that forward. I did have one other question. Would it be possible to check with the county ahead of time about what they would accept and what they wouldn't? Have you talked with them about these?
The county finance department relies on the HDC to weed that out in advance. I mean, I could check with my colleague Scott Whipple who is head of the preservation unit for the county, but yeah, I can certainly do that in the future.
Okay, well, let's leave the main house alone, because that's not in contention. With regard to the log structure and the tiny shed, what I would want to do is have a bit more information in two regards. One, if it is possible to get some verification on if any of those logs that we see in the interior picture are in fact original. Because if what we're seeing on the inside is original, then that means it's the real log. If what we're seeing is just something, a replica, because of, you know, we've had to patch, I have in the past, log cabins, and you take a slab, I mean, there are things you could do. That would be number one. And number two, if we can get more information on the tiny shed. So that's sort of on the physical side. But then, Chris, Greg, I don't know if you would want to talk with Scott Whipple to determine if we are expected to grant more leniency on an accessory or an outbuilding, not a principal residence. And the reason I say that is because I've done, I don't know, maybe 20 historic cabins over time. And there was one, we had something that literally, the roof like that was on the ground. And we literally raised it up and built underneath it. So even though, I mean, I want to weep when I see that log cabin, what was done to it. But nonetheless, there is a structure which replicates, excuse me, the footprint, and to some degree the roof detailing, a 12 by 12 or whatever it is. So there is that. So those would be the two things that I would want to know, and maybe Scott could or Greg, or I don't know how we would research that. So that's where I stand.
Well, I can offer a thought. When you look at the existing, the photos of the existing structure, the log tenant house, all that wood is blackened. The wood inside the revision is blonde. I don't believe you can get that wood to be clean like that, no matter how much you sand it.
Well, that's why I wanted to research that, because it's.
We need more than one picture. as
Well,
part of
but
it, too.
my recollection of the
Chris, can you put up the photo that shows the interior showing this, the
The-
ceiling
the-
joists? Yeah, I mean, you can tell real easy what's new and what's not.
yeah, those are pit sawn. Yeah, those are pit sawn striations. Those are not, because I mean, we actually use the
They're
old
not tools,
tools.
yeah.
Yeah, so that's pit sawn, and yeah, I would definitely want to know about that. But again, I also would want to know the rigor with which we should come down on this, because I'm horrified by the log cabin. Breaks my little log cabin heart. However, it's within the footprint. It's the same configuration. It's probably essentially the same height. The roof configuration is probably the same pitch, same gables, and the same thing with the smaller shed. So in a way, they have been true to the historicity.
I think to some degree it comes down to how broad your definition of the word repair is. And I think to help that, maybe if we only have images that we've seen of the two buildings when they're really in disrepair. I haven't seen an image of what it was prior to it falling into disrepair. What the exterior looked like. I know the interior is the interior, but we're not really awarding tax credits on the interior anyway. So, are there any photographic images of those two
No, I mean,
outbuildings?
we have historic photos of the main house, but not the outbuildings.
Well, Mark, if I can build on what you're saying, though, I think even more relevant would be what they started with and as they were doing construction. Because I remember there's a set of pictures we don't have here where they were talking about that log outbuilding there, and they had done all this shoring up and squaring away so it wouldn't deteriorate. And certainly my impression was that as many of those logs as they could salvage, they were going to, and really felt they could. They
And they're-
didn't just razz it. And then they brought this to us as a fait accompli.
There should be minutes of those meetings. I do remember the board feeling shocked when they saw the completed project, that it was not what we felt we had approved. And that was definitely the feeling of the entire board
What-
at the time.
Frank, what was the definition you read again for for us to be approving it, the eligibility of it?
It was essentially focusing on the, that the structure contributes to the restoration or preservation of sites listed on the master plan. So it's part of your overall plan, and it contributes, again, to restoration and preservation.
But is the way
Of
they
those
did this
sites.
contributing to the restoration of those two buildings? That's, I guess,
It does say
Well-
restoration or preservation, yes.
But in those days, your outbuildings were a majorly functional part
Mhm.
of your dwelling.
Excuse me.
I maybe have, I don't know if I want to put in a motion yet, but wondering if we just need more information, like you said, more pictures, more, if we want to split this up into three.
How much money is devoted to the two outbuildings in terms of the overall?
They break it down. I can pull that up, but I can say the vast majority is for the main house.
And would it make much difference to have this come before us next month with more evidence?
Unfortunately, that's not possible because
Time
the
limits.
absolute drop-dead deadline is
Okay.
upon us.
I can tell you,
I could say that.
it's 175,000 for the house. 76 for the tenant, the log house, 76,000 for the log house, and 14,000 for the shed.
It's still pretty substantial.
Yeah.
No, I could say that the
That's
applicant
90K.
is aware that the two outbuildings may not even qualify. So they are aware of that. Their main focus is to get the tax credit money for the main house.
So we need to decide.
It seems to me there's enough questions with regards to the two outbuildings that, among ourselves, that we won't be able to get answered. So it's in the interest of time to benefit the applicant, we can rule favorably on the main house. Why don't we just do that?
Then are we splitting these?
Well, can we do a partial?
I think you can pull, and correct me if I'm wrong, pull
As-
those sections
As part
out.
of your approval, you can specify what property, what element of this you are approving.
Okay.
And as
And we
long
can
as it's
come
very
back
clear
another time?
in the motion, that should be fine.
Can the others come back at another time then?
They can't because they're past the deadline.
Well, they can do it
Chris was
next
just
year.
saying.
Yeah.
Because the time is lenient.
If
Oh,
if
that's
they're
very
really, they could
Did
come
you
back
hear
next year.
That was a joke. Did you hear his joke?
That would be the only practical option, whether or not they would.
Okay, and if it does come back next year, we require more evidence. I think that'll work.
It's fine by me.
Yeah, I think so.
Robert, that
Yeah.
suit you?
Yeah, that's fine.
Or you-
Yes.
Mark?
Yeah.
So I think, so in a moment, I think what we're gonna come up with is the only thing I don't think we need to add what we're not certifying. I think it's enough that if we certify that it's, we feel it's contributing to the historicity or whatever that language is, Frank. And then we simply approve that portion of the work done on the main cabin and leave it at that.
Because this is a law that deals with taxes, I think that I don't think it hurts us at all to add another sentence saying that we're
I
not.
will defer to,
I want to be
to
clear
counsel.
with them. I mean, if they're approving 98% based on the HDC's recommendation, I tend to think that they don't do, there's a good chance they don't do the scrutiny that we may think that they are doing. And I'd like it just to be crystal clear that we're not certifying that this is eligible based on the law, because the law is clear.
well,
And all I'm just trying to say is just let's add a sentence. I don't know why it would be that big of a concern to add a sentence just for clarity's sake.
Well, I will defer to counsel. I don't see the necessity, nor do I think it's our province to police the time limits if that's something that the county has apparently over time indicated to Chris, yes, we understand, don't worry about it. But Frank, I'll defer to you on this.
I don't know that I can say, it's more a practical question of what will be considered or not, but I can't say legally that there's any reason you can or can't include some sort of a provision. What they are looking for is simply your certification as to that it's contributing to essentially the historic master plan as a site. But, so I don't know that additional language would even be that much considered, but I can't say you couldn't include it if that's your decision. Because what you'd be saying is we're not ruling on that. We are
Right, that's
ruling
all,
on
that's why I just
what
wanted them
you've
to
asked
realize
us
that.
to,
That's
essentially
all.
what you have asked us to do.
I don't know why not putting it in would hurt us. I mean, it's just the sentence for clarification.
Well, I don't see what we gain, but here's the thing, we have, 3 other commissioners. I feel we should not address it, but we have other commissioners and let's see how they feel. Robert is nodding his head yes, so it really, just how you guys feel about it.
I prefer to err on the side of over specificity.
Okay? Mary Jo?
When in Rome.
When in, all right. Well, anyway, it doesn't even matter what we think. It's 3-2, we're outvoted. Okay, so in it
Yeah.
goes.
Well, I think you need a motion and a second.
We
or
do.
Oh, of
did
course,
you-
of
And I
course.
was
We're just trying to figure out what.
gonna
the
Okay,
language
okay,
is gonna-
okay.
Oh,
I think
yeah,
this
okay.
is the
Oh,
deep
yeah,
version.
yeah.
Do you
My
like
mistake.
to craft that motion?
No, I wouldn't. I'll craft the
Oh,
exclusion.
no, you don't. You have to do it.
You
All
get
right,
the
so
whole
you
thing.
guys are saying that, all right, do we have the
That's okay.
wording that, is that part of this?
Yeah, and then add in what we need the first language from Frank as to.
That's what I'm
We
saying.
are
Do you have that?
certifying, Frank, can you provide that?
Yes. That the Historic District Commission is certifying that the proposed work, and this would be related to the main house, is contributing to the restoration or preservation of a site listed on the master plan, either individually or within the historic district. I
Okay.
assume this case it's individually, but.
I
Yeah.
propose that we adopt that with the following added. We are not certifying the log tenant structure restoration at this time, and we are not certifying the shed structure restoration at this time, and we are not certifying the dates and deadlines defined by the law, which I believe is in Chapter 52, Article 6, I think it's referenced, in the county real estate property tax law.
I'll second that.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed. So it passes 4-1.
Now, have we approved the work on the house? Was that included?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
That's all
Okay,
we
good.
approved.
Just
We
making sure.
excluded the other two projects.
making
Right,
sure.
right,
Okay.
right. So good catch, Dean.
Thank you.
Really, because I'm not sure, I would have been that rigorous, and I think that rigor was appropriate.
I appreciate that, thank you.
Okay, now Firehouse Lane, we have another tax credit application. Any conflicts?
No conflicts.
Nope.
Anyone in the audience wish to speak to this? They're both still awake. All righty. Chris, any presentation?
The firehouse at 321 Firehouse Lane is individually designated as part of the Kentlands Old Farm neighborhood. The HDC certified the applicant's historic tax credit application, which was HIS 7608-2017, at last month's meeting. The HDC recognized that the applicant did not pursue tax credits for the snow guards installed on the roof in 2016 and believed the guards would be eligible. After the meeting, staff contacted Scott Whipple, Montgomery County Supervisor of the Historic Preservation Unit, for his input on the eligibility of the snow guards. Mr. Whipple said the County Historic Preservation Commission likely would certify that work. And staff also received confirmation from the County Finance Department that the historic tax credit application could be submitted after tonight's meeting. Staff notified the applicants that the snow guards may be eligible. They have submitted a revised historic tax credit application that includes the installation of the snow guards. The HDC approved the guards as part of HIS 7180-2015. Along with the other work the HDC approved last month, the applicant now seeks a tax credit totaling $1,485. Are there any questions?
I don't have any.
All right. Have we a motion?
I move that the Historic District Commission certify that HIST 7635-2017 is eligible for participation in the Montgomery County Historic Preservation Tax Credit Program.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, 5-0. Okay, staff updates.
I have nothing.
Okay. Commission updates.
I have nothing.
I have something. How many of you here are crab lovers? Not crabby, but
It's
crab
coming up
lovers.
again?
Yes, September, again, at Clayton's. This should be Saturday, September 16th. All the proceeds go to MAHDC, which is the commission of commissioners, of which I represent us. And it's gonna be a lot of fun. We'll have an auction of goodies. There will be hot dogs, corn, and things for non-crab people, but this is about as fresh as you get it. This is the oldest continuous operation, and they literally, where we will be, because none of you have been there, it's really pretty cool. Concrete floor, and everything is stainless steel, and they have these little pull-down things. So the ships come in, the nets come up, all the crabs come down and shoot into there and are washed and sorted and whatever they do. So, and then they will steam them for us and season them. We had one request one year to have a couple bushels that were not seasoned, but if you like crabs, and I'll get something out to you with a flyer, but do come, it's a lot of fun. Bring the kids, and it's a hoot. You will see me dressed up in a crab outfit. Wait, I shouldn't have said that. You'll probably not come. All right, anything else for the good of the order?
Well, I do have one thing.
Yes, sir.
I had mentioned before the Open Meetings Act training issues where, and that would be coming up for the city. It's still set for September 12th. Everybody will get notice of that, so we're not
Good.
issuing any of that. But under the state law that was passed, there is a requirement that each board or commission designate at least one person who is, not that others can't receive the training and satisfy it, but that one person does need to be designated as the primary person to receive the training, so that if that person is present, then there's not an issue. And if it were necessary to close a meeting, probably get legal advice more than anything.
But-
And certainly, two people could be designated if that's your decision. I do want to make sure that's done, because the effective date of that bill is October 1st, but certain elements were,
Will
may
you
even
do
apply
me a
earlier.
favor, Chris, if you will send me an email tomorrow, all I have to do is check the calendar and make sure that we're not out of town or something.
Sure, but I'm saying that this commission does need to designate, you could designate the chair, you could designate the chair and vice chair if you want to do that. but somebody does need to be designated. That doesn't mean everybody else can't
John Roddy.
attend. So,
John,
That's-
please put
that's
this in the
entirely up to you.
minutes. John,
it could be on the, if we know it's likely that HDC will meet in July, but if there's the possibility they won't, then that might be something, if you just, as a matter of the record, if somebody
Right.
wishes to move, or by consensus, simply say the chair and vice chair are at least designated. Again, that doesn't mean
Well,
you all can't attend.
I will be the designee and go to the, I mean, anybody else is welcome, just to make sure we're covered. But Chris, just give me a reminder.
Okay.
And all I have to do is, I have these big blotter calendars, and if we're here on September 12th,
Okay,
I'm it. And if not,
okay,
that'll teach John Roddy not to be here.
that's true.
Then he's our
But,
designee.
And if there's no objection, then we can just, the record can reflect that that is the consensus. Again, it's the technicality of state law that somebody be
No,
designated,
we
as
wanna-
well as attend the training.
No, listen, I used to work at the federal level with something called
So you
FACA, the
understand
Federal
technicality.
Advisory Committee Act, and where we would have to put notices in the Federal
Yeah.
Register, and we did have to close meetings, and so this is a very big deal, because very few of a municipality or a governmental action can be successfully legally challenged. You have to be arbitrary or capricious, or you have to have violated one of the procedural protocols like that. And so that it's serious business.
And does the designee have to attend every meeting?
Oh, no.
Just a meeting.
Okay.
They just need to have somebody designated, and you can have a
Right.
designee, vice designee, you can
Okay. Right.
designate everybody if you wish.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that is just part of the state law requirement in terms of if you did need to close a
Right,
meeting.
right.
Okay.
And then Frank, I will be talking offline with you, because this whole democracy thing, this is crazy. I mean, I think we ought to have a benevolent dictatorship here, so I will be working with counsel behind this. Only kidding. Anybody watching? Only
Okay,
kidding.
yeah, are we still on TV?
Yes, we are. This is live. They don't let me out much, folks. All right, well, the chair is, thanks everybody for their participation, and the staff, excellent work. And so, really, thanks all, and certainly open to a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.